But we start with the debt ceiling showdown in Washington. Officials on both sides of the aisle are continuing negotiations today over the nation's borrowing limit.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warns that the U.S. risks defaulting on its debt as early as June 1st, or just over a week from today. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy addressed reporters earlier. He lambasted Democrats for not making the concessions he wants, while also saying he thinks that officials in Washington can make progress on the debt limit today.
There's differences. We know where it's at. You have to spend less than you spent last year. That's not that difficult to do. But in Washington, somehow, that is a problem. They have increased spending with the Democrats in the majority on discretionary spending by more than 33%. No household's been able to afford to do that. We can find waste. We can eliminate that. The president eliminated a lot of places that we can't talk about, so I got a short area to do it, but we found a reasonable way to do it.
Joining us now from Capitol Hill is CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane. So, Scott, what is the latest that you're hearing on these ongoing negotiations? Are leaders in Washington getting any closer to reaching a deal?
Elaine and Lana, negotiators are beginning this afternoon at the White House, continuing the conversations that have gone on for several days now. And this deadline is just racing toward us, 1 week and 1 day away. But it feels like the participants in this race, the key players, the negotiators, are running in quicksand toward that deadline. Speaker McCarthy having his latest in a growing series of media availabilities, news conferences, to restate his position that it's up to the White House and Democrats to now come up with something they can pass, to either meet in the middle with House Republicans and their bill, or to find some other third way. But this is echoing what we've heard through the first half of this week and late last week. If there is a change in this trajectory, if there's any increasing odds toward a deal, we aren't getting a sense of it just yet.
Yeah. Well, these talks are largely locked on the problem of spending cuts, which Republicans have been arguing for. But even as McCarthy says we have to make spending cuts, he and his fellow Republicans are pushing for additional spending for defense. That's part of why Democrats, I understand, are resisting some of the cuts, because then they'll be even greater to some of these other programs. Explain to us what's going on here.
Well, there are 1,000,001 wedge issues in this building every day, but there are two key sticking points on this. Spending caps. It's a real Washington phrase, isn't it? Spending caps. It's chopping or capping how much money the government spends on everything. Republicans say they need to see a reduction in spending, a tighter cap, if they're going to say yes to any deal to raise the debt ceiling. Democrats are responding, saying when you say spending caps, you are cutting some real-world things, including education, transportation, and supplementary nutritional assistance for people who need that type of social program. We spoke with one Democrat, Summer Lee of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who says she not only thinks that's unacceptable, but might be a red line that prevents a deal.
When I was growing up, there were points in my life where my mom, my family needed nutritional assistance, right? We needed Section 8 housing. There are people who are looking for jobs that are long-term, that are more consistent, that are more stable, and they're not able to find them. And what we're doing is we're stereotyping those folks. We are stigmatizing them, and we are perpetuating racial stereotypes of old images of the welfare queen, all of these images that really, truly, unnecessarily and falsely accuse particularly Black and brown folks and women of not working and taking advantage of the system.
Republicans have their red lines, too. We asked the Speaker a few minutes ago whether there can be some third way, some meeting of the minds. And he says, can we get to yes? Yes. It's just unclear right now, Elaine and Lana, how they do it.
Well, Scott, some House Republicans are showing skepticism that the U.S. risks defaulting on its debt as soon as June 1st. How seriously are negotiators taking that potential deadline that has been set by the Treasury Secretary?
That might be the most ominous sign that there's still a dispute over the veracity of the deadline itself. There are a number of House Republicans who say they don't really believe or want to see some proof that June 1st truly is a firm deadline date. But put that aside, there is still that potential that the breaching of a deadline, no matter how much proof is shown, can still injure the economy, can still shock the stock market, the U.S. bond rating, your 401k, can plunge the U.S. into recession. So whether or not they agree on the deadline, nearing or breaching that deadline can still be cataclysmic.
Yeah, we've already seen uncertainty over the debt ceiling talks affect the markets. Scott MacFarlane on Capitol Hill for us. Scott, thank you.